Commander Vex'Tal, we have an unidentified vessel approaching from Sector 7. The young navigator's voice cracked with anxiety as his 3 eyes blinked rapidly at the holographic display. Commander Vex'Tal of the Galactic Confederation's 3rd Fleet sighed deeply, his grey-blue skin wrinkling around his mouth tentacles. Another day, another alert. Sometimes he wondered if his subordinates could distinguish between actual threats and space debris. "What class of vessel?" he asked, not bothering to look up from his reports. The Confederation had mapped this quadrant thoroughly. Any ship here should be registered and recognized automatically by their systems. That's the problem, sir," the navigator, Zil Norex, stammered. "It doesn't match any known configuration in our database." Now they got Vex'Tal's attention. He set down his datapad and moved to the command center of the bridge. The rest of his crew, a mix of Quatraxians like himself and several allied species, were already staring at the main viewer with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright fear. "Show me," he ordered. The holographic display zoomed in on a vessel unlike any Vex'Tal had seen in his 200 cycles of service. It was relatively small compared to Confederation cruisers, perhaps a quarter the size of his own command ship, but had a distinctly predatory look. Its hull was dark, almost black, with strange angular protrusions that seemed designed to deflect scanning beams. Most peculiar were the massive cylindrical structures positioned laterally along its hull. "What in the 7 moons of Quatrax is that?" Lieutenant Prieldar whispered, her head crests flaring in alarm. "Communications, hail the vessel," Vex'Tal ordered, maintaining his composure despite the unease growing in his gut sacs. Communications Officer Taka, a furry Vespulian with 6 limbs, worked her console frantically. "No response, Commander. I'm broadcasting on all standard frequencies." "Keep trying. Tactical, what's your assessment?" Tactical Officer Grulk, a Tarkaisian whose species was known for their warrior culture, growled low. "Those cylindrical structures, Commander, they appear to be weapons ports. Primitive by our standards, but if I'm reading these energy signatures correctly, they pack significant destructive potential." "An armed vessel in Confederation space?" Vex'Tal's mandibles clicked in agitation. "That's a direct violation of the peace accords." "Sir," Zil Norex called out, his voice now steady as training overtook panic. "I've cross-referenced with historical archives. The design, it appears to be human." A hush fell over the bridge. Humans. The mysterious bipeds from the backwater planet Earth. The Confederation had made brief contact with them nearly 60 cycles ago, deemed them primitive but harmless, and placed their solar system under observation status. No direct interaction was permitted until they achieved faster-than-light travel, a technological advancement the Confederation scientists had estimated would take them at least another century to develop. Yet here they were, in Confederation space, armed with weapons. "That's impossible," Vex'Tal said, though the evidence floated before him. They were barely venturing beyond their own moon when we last checked. "Sir," Communications Officer Taka interrupted, "they're hailing us." Vex'Tal straightened his uniform, ran a hand over his head crests, and nodded. On screen. The holographic display flickered and a human face appeared. Vex'Tal had studied xenobiology. He recognized the pinkish skin tone, the strange fur on top of the head, and the disconcertingly small number of eyes as characteristic of the species. This particular specimen had what appeared to be a darker skin tone and short, curly black head fur. "This is Captain Amara Jackson of the Earth Interstellar Vessel Defiant," the human said, speaking Galactic Standard with surprising fluency. "We request safe passage through your territory." Vex'Tal struggled to maintain his diplomatic composure. "This is Commander Vex'Tal of the Galactic Confederation's 3rd Fleet. Your presence here is unauthorized. Earth humans have not been granted interstellar travel privileges. Furthermore, your vessel appears to be armed. which violates numerous Confederation statutes. And the human, Captain Jackson, smiled. It was an expression Vex'Tal recognized from cultural studies as potentially friendly, but there was something predatory about it that set his warning appendages twitching. With all due respect, Commander, we didn't ask for your permission to explore space. As for the weapons... She shrugged, another human gesture Vex'Tal found difficult to interpret. Let's just say we've learned it's better to be prepared than sorry. Grulk leaned close to Vex'Tal and whispered, "Their weapon systems just went active, sir. It's not targeting us yet, but they're warmed up and ready." Vex'Tal kept his external composure, but internally his digestive sacs were nodding with tension. "Captain Jackson, I must insist you power down your weapon systems immediately. The Confederation does not respond well to threats." "Neither do humans, Commander," Jackson replied smoothly. "Consider our weapons a precaution, not a threat. We've been observing your Confederation for some time, and while we appreciate the whole benevolent, advanced civilization routine, we've noted you tend to be more respectful of species that can defend themselves." "Sir," Zalarex interrupted urgently, "I'm detecting energy fluctuations in their propulsion system. It's nothing like our drives." Vex'Tal glanced at the data and felt his blood temperature drop several degrees. The human ship was using some form of spatial manipulation for propulsion, technology that should be far beyond their capabilities. "How did you achieve faster-than-light travel?" Vex'Tal demanded, abandoning diplomacy for direct questioning. "Our assessments indicated your species was at least a century away from such technology." Captain Jackson laughed, the sound both melodious and somehow threatening to Vex'Tal's auditory receptors. "Commander, has it occurred to you that perhaps we didn't want you to know our true capabilities? Your probes were spotted the moment they entered our solar system. We've been feeding them exactly what we wanted you to see." The implication sent a tremor through Vex'Tal's secondary spine. If the humans had detected and manipulated Confederation surveillance, what else might they be capable of? "Sir," Lieutenant Prieldar said, her voice tight with concern, "2 more vessels just dropped out of whatever form of FTL they're using. Same configuration, same armaments." 3 ships is hardly an invasion force, Vex'Tal noted, though he signalled Grulk to quietly bring their defensive systems to stand by. "True," Captain Jackson agreed. "Consider this a diplomatic mission. With teeth." "With teeth. The Confederation does not respond to intimidation, Captain. And humans don't respond well to being treated like lab specimens or primitive curiosities," she countered. "We're here to establish our place in the galactic community, Commander, as equals, not as subjects." Vex'Tal felt the weight of this moment. First contact situations were delicate enough without the added complication of unexpected technological advancement and military posturing. His decision now could potentially shape Confederation-human relations for generations. "Perhaps we should discuss this further," he offered. "Would you and a small delegation be willing to come aboard my vessel? I promise your safety under the Confederation's first contact protocols." "That's very kind. But I have a counter-proposal," Jackson said. "Why don't you join us on the Defiant? Our chef has prepared what we believe would be compatible refreshments for Quatraxian physiology." The bridge crew exchanged glances of astonishment. The humans had researched their biology. Before Vex'Tal could respond, a new alert sounded. Zil Norex checked his console and looked up. All 3 eyes widened in shock. "Sir, we're receiving transmissions from Confederation outposts throughout the sector. Human vessels have been detected at 27 different locations simultaneously. They're everywhere." Vex'Tal stared at Captain Jackson's composed face on the screen. "This isn't just about safe passage, is it?" "As I said, Commander, we're establishing our place," she replied. "Don't worry. We're not looking for conflict, but we are done hiding." The Confederation High Council will never accept this. This show of force, Vex'Tal warned. Jackson's expression softened slightly. We've spent the last 60 years preparing for this moment. We know more about your Confederation than you'd be comfortable with. We've mapped your territories, studied your strengths and weaknesses. We don't want conflict, but we are prepared for it. Vex'Tal felt the weight of galactic history pressing down on his shoulders. His options were limited, his position uncomfortable. But perhaps there was still a diplomatic solution. I will convey your message to the High Council, he said carefully. But I must warn you, Captain Jackson, threats against the Confederation rarely end well for those making them. This isn't a threat, Commander, Jackson replied. It's a new reality. The galaxy just got a little more interesting. Now, about that meeting. Our chef really has gone to considerable trouble. Vex'Tal looked around at his bridge crew, saw the mixture of fear and fascination in their expressions, and made his decision. Very well, Captain. I accept your invitation, for the sake of peaceful relations. Excellent. Jackson's face brightened. We'll send coordinates for docking, and Commander, you might want to bring an open mind. Humans are full of surprises. As the transmission ended, Vex'Tal turned to his stunned crew. Well, he said, his voice deliberately steady, it seems the galaxy has become considerably more complicated. Prepare a shuttle, sir, GRX protested. This could be a trap, or, Vex'Tal countered, adjusting his uniform, it could be the most significant diplomatic opportunity of our lifetime. Either way, I suspect the Confederation's days of uncontested dominance may be coming to an end. As he gazed at the sleek, armed human vessel on the viewer, Vex'Tal couldn't help but wonder what other surprises these peculiar bipeds might have in store. One thing was certain, the galaxy would never be the same again. The shuttle journey to the human vessel Defiant was tense. Vex'Tal sat rigidly beside his small delegation, Tactical Officer GRX, who had insisted on coming for security, and xenobiologist Dr. Lonnie Farrar, whose expertise with unfamiliar species might prove valuable. I still think this is unwise, Commander, GRX rumbled, his massive frame barely fitting in the shuttle seat. The humans have already demonstrated deception as a tactic, which makes understanding them all the more crucial, Vex'Tal replied, watching through the viewport as they approached the Defiant. Up close, the human ship was even more intimidating, a perfect blend of function and threat. Besides, if they wanted to destroy us, they could have done so without the invitation to dinner. Dr. Lonnie Farrar adjusted her sensory equipment. Their technological leap is unprecedented in Confederation records. No species has ever advanced this rapidly without external assistance. Unless they've had assistance we weren't aware of, Vex'Tal mused. The shuttle slowed as it approached a docking bay that opened like a mouth in the side of the Defiant. Bright lights guided them in, and with a slight bump, they connected to the human vessel. Remember, Vex'Tal instructed as they prepared to disembark, observe everything, but remain diplomatic. The future of Confederation-human relations may depend on this meeting. The airlock cycled, and the door slid open to reveal Captain Amara Jackson waiting with two other humans. One was tall, with pale skin and short blonde hair, wearing what appeared to be a military uniform similar to Jackson's. The other was shorter, with bronze skin and long dark hair tied back, dressed in a different style that Vex'Tal guessed might denote a scientific or technical role. Commander Vex'Tal, Jackson greeted with a slight bow. Welcome aboard the Defiant. Allow me to introduce my first officer, Commander Leo Petrov, and our Chief Science Officer, Dr. Maya Rivera. Vex'Tal performed the traditional Quatrexian greeting gesture, pressing his primary fingertips to his forehead. Captain Jackson, this is Tactical Officer GRX and xenobiologist Dr. Lonnie Farrar. Jackson smiled. Wonderful to meet you all. Please follow me. We've prepared a more comfortable setting for our discussions. As they walked through the corridors of the Defiant, Vex'Tal couldn't help but notice the efficiency of the design. Every panel, every station seemed purpose-built. There was none of the ornate aesthetics common to Confederation vessels, just pure functionality. More concerning were the armed humans they passed at regular intervals, their expressions professionally neutral, but their stance unmistakably alert. "Your ship is impressively designed," Vex'Tal commented. "Thank you," the human scientist Dr. Rivera responded. "The Defiant-class vessels represent our fourth generation of interstellar ships. We've learned a lot since our first prototypes." "Fourth generation?" Dr. Lonnie Farah couldn't hide her surprise. "But our intelligence suggested you were still confined to chemical rockets just decades ago." Commander Petrov laughed, a short, sharp sound. "Your intelligence was seeing exactly what we wanted it to see. It's amazing how convincing a carefully orchestrated space program can appear to outside observers." They arrived at what appeared to be a meeting room, and a large table dominated the centre, set with various containers and implements that Vex'Tal assumed were for dining. The walls displayed constantly changing images of what he recognized as Earth landscapes: mountains, oceans, forests, and cities. "Please be seated," Jackson invited, gesturing to chairs that had clearly been modified to accommodate Quatraxian and Tarkasian physiology. Once they were settled, humans entered carrying platters of food. The aromas were strange, but not unpleasant too. Vex'Tal's scent receptors twitched. "We've prepared dishes that should be compatible with your digestive systems," Dr. Rivera explained. "Based on our analysis of Quatraxian and Tarkasian biology, these should not only be safe, but possibly enjoyable." GRX looked suspiciously at the food. "You've studied our biology in detail, it seems." "Thoroughly," Rivera confirmed without apology. "Just as you've studied ours." Vex'Tal sampled a morsel of something blue and gelatinous. To his surprise, it dissolved pleasantly on his tongue appendages, releasing flavours reminiscent of Quatraxian sea. "This is quite good." "I'm glad you approve," Jackson said. "Now, while we dine, perhaps we can begin discussing the new galactic reality we find ourselves in." "Yes, let's discuss this new reality," Vex'Tal agreed, setting down his eating implement, "starting with how you managed to achieve such technological advancement without detection." Jackson exchanged glances with her officers before responding. "Necessity and paranoia make for powerful motivators, Commander. When your probes first appeared in our system, our world leaders were faced with a choice: announce your existence to our population and risk global panic, or keep it secret and prepare quietly. They chose secrecy," Petrov continued. "A small group of global leaders and scientists were informed. Resources were diverted through black-budget programs. The world's best minds were recruited under the guise of terrestrial projects, while actually working on reverse engineering your technology." "The probes you sent were fascinating," Dr. Rivera added, her eyes lighting up with scientific enthusiasm. "You really shouldn't make your observation technology so accessible. Once we captured one intact, it was simply a matter of careful study and patient experimentation." Vex'Tal's mandibles clicked in disbelief. "You're saying you built all this faster-than-light travel, advanced weapon systems, shield technology, from studying our observation probes?" "Not entirely," Jackson admitted. "The probes were just the beginning. Once we understood the basics, we became more proactive in our research." Crux growled, "The missing research vessels." "We prefer to think of them as unwitting technology donations," Petrov said, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Really, it was quite sporting. Your crews were safely returned to Confederation space with adjusted memories and none the wiser." "That's a violation of countless Confederation laws," Vex'Tal exclaimed. "Laws we never agreed to," Jackson countered smoothly. "Laws that were created without our input or consent. The Confederation declared itself the authority in this sector of space long before we could object." Dr. Lonnie Farah, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. You said 27 human vessels have appeared throughout Confederation space simultaneously. How many ships do you actually have? The three humans exchanged looks again, and it was Rivera who answered. Let's just say that while your Confederation was cataloguing primitive species, we were building a fleet. A fleet, Vex'Tal repeated, the implication sinking in. For defense or conquest? That depends entirely on the Confederation's response to our emergence, Jackson said, her tone suddenly serious. We've observed how you treat species you deem primitive or non-threatening. We've also observed how you treat those you consider potential rivals. The Tagarans, Crux muttered. Precisely, Petrov nodded. The Tagarans developed faster-than-light technology independently and announced themselves proudly to the galaxy. The Confederation responded by restricting their expansion, limiting their trade, and effectively containing them. The Trogarians were aggressive expansionists, Vex'Tal defended. The restrictions were for galactic security. From your perspective, perhaps, Jackson acknowledged. From theirs, and now ours, it looked like the Confederation crushing potential competition before it could arise. A moment of tense silence followed, broken only by the soft hum of the ship systems. What exactly do you want? Vex'Tal finally asked. Recognition as equals, Jackson stated firmly. Access to Confederation trade networks with a right to establish colonies within reasonable distance of our home system, and a seat on the High Council. Vex'Tal nearly choked on his food. A seat on the High Council? Impossible. Species must prove themselves over centuries before such an honour is even considered. Those are your rules, Commander, Jackson said calmly. Rules created to maintain the existing power structure. We're proposing new rules. Or what? GRX challenged. You'll attack the Confederation? Even with your surprising advancement, you must realize you're outnumbered thousands to one. Dr. Rivera smiled in a way that made Vex'Tal's skin prickle. Numbers aren't everything, Officer GRX. Quality often trumps quantity. Besides, Petrov added, we're not proposing war. We're proposing a choice. Accept us as equals, or we'll forge our own path in the galaxy, perhaps with others who chafe under Confederation guidance. You would ally with dissident factions? Vex'Tal's voice rose in alarm. We already have, Jackson confirmed. The Tagarans were quite receptive to our overtures, as were the Voronezh and the Nefali Collective. The name sent shivers through Vex'Tal's secondary spine. All were species that had troubled relationships with the Confederation, some openly hostile. You're bluffing, Crux declared, though his tone lacked conviction. Jackson tapped a control on the table, and a holographic display appeared above them, showing dozens of human vessels in various sectors of space, many more than the 27 initially reported. More disturbingly, the display also showed Tulgaran, Vorkanax and Nefali ships operating alongside them. This is happening in real time, Commander, Jackson said softly. While we've been enjoying this meal, humanity has been reshaping the galactic chessboard. Vex'Tal felt as though the artificial gravity had increased. You've been planning this for decades. Ever since we realized we weren't alone, Rivera confirmed. We studied your history, your politics, your vulnerabilities. We learned from your successes and your failures. And now you present the Confederation with an ultimatum, Vex'Tal summarized bitterly. I prefer to think of it as an opportunity, Jackson corrected. The Confederation has maintained stability for millennia. That's admirable, but stability without growth becomes stagnation. Perhaps what the galaxy needs now is a fresh perspective. The High Council will never agree to your terms, Vex'Tal stated. Jackson leaned forward, her expression earnest. Then help us convince them, Commander. You've seen what we can do. You know what the alternatives might be. A galaxy divided, old alliances broken, new powers rising. There's a stronger Confederation, enhanced by human innovation and drive. What makes you think humans have anything to offer beyond stolen technology? GRX challenged. Petrov laughed. Because we didn't just copy your technology, Officer GRX. We improved it. The Defiance drive system is 30% more efficient than any Confederation equivalent. Our weapon systems use principles your scientists haven't explored. Our medical technology is advancing in directions yours abandoned centuries ago. It's true, Doctor, Lonnie Farah said quietly, looking up from her scanning device. Commander, I've been analysing their ship systems during our conversation. They've made modifications to basic Confederation designs that are remarkable in their ingenuity. Humans excel at thinking outside established parameters, Rivera said with evident pride. We question, we challenge, we imagine possibilities others dismiss as impossible. That's our greatest strength and our greatest threat from the Confederation's perspective. We understand that, Jackson added, but it doesn't have to be a threat. It could be an asset, if you're willing to share power rather than merely exercise it. Vex'Tal considered his options. The situation was unprecedented. If the humans truly had allied with the Tgarans and others, and if their technological capabilities were as advanced as they appeared, then the Confederation faced a serious challenge to its authority. You've given me much to consider, Captain Jackson, he said finally. I will convey your proposal to the High Council. And your recommendation? Jackson pressed. Vex'Tal hesitated, then made his decision. I will recommend provisional acceptance of humanity as an associate member of the Confederation, with rights of trade and colonization to be negotiated. The council seat is out of the question, at least immediately. Jackson nodded slowly. It's a starting point. We're patient, to a point. What assurances do we have that you won't use this starting point to further undermine Confederation stability? GRX demanded. The same assurances the Confederation offers its members, Petrov replied. Mutual benefit. The simple fact that cooperation serves our interests better than conflict. Jackson raised what Vex'Tal recognized as a drinking vessel. To new beginnings, Commander, and to a galaxy where strength comes from diversity rather than conformity. Vex'Tal reluctantly raised his own vessel in response. To avoiding unnecessary conflict, he countered, and wise decisions in uncertain times. As they completed the ritual of shared consumption, Vex'Tal couldn't shake the feeling that this day marked a fundamental shift in galactic politics. Humanity had announced itself, not with humility, but with confidence bordering on arrogance. They had challenged the established order, formed alliances behind the Confederation's back, and now demanded recognition, on their own terms. The journey back to his ship was silent, each member of his delegation lost in their own thoughts. As they approached the command cruiser, Vex'Tal turned to Dr. Lonnie Farah. Your assessment of the humans, Doctor? The xenobiologist's neck frills pulsed with agitation. Dangerous, Commander. Not necessarily hostile, but dangerous nonetheless. They combine intelligence with unpredictability in a way I've never observed in any other species. They're cooperative, yet individualistic, peaceful, yet militaristic, logical, yet emotional. They embrace contradictions that would tear other societies apart. You sound almost admiring, Gurex observed disapprovingly. One can admire a predator's capabilities while recognizing the threat it poses, she replied. Back on his own bridge, Vex'Tal found his crew anxiously awaiting his return. Their expressions told him that news of the human emergence had spread throughout the fleet. Orders, Commander? Lieutenant Peldar asked as he settled into his command chair. Vex'Tal gazed at the view screen where the Defiance still hovered alongside two other human vessels. Beyond them, the stars seemed suddenly less familiar. The void between them filled with new possibilities and new dangers. Open a secure channel to the High Council, he said firmly. Priority 1, and prepare a full report on everything we've learned about the humans, their capabilities, their alliances, their demands. "And if the Council rejects their terms?" Zil-Norex asked nervously. Vex'Tal's mouth tentacles twisted in a grim expression. "Then we prepare for a very different galaxy than the one we've known." As the communications officer worked to establish the connection to the distant Confederation capital, Vex'Tal reflected on Captain Jackson's words. Humans had described themselves as innovative, adaptable, and determined. They had spent decades preparing for this moment of emergence onto the galactic stage. The question now was whether the ancient, tradition-bound Confederation could adapt as quickly as these newcomers had, whether it could embrace change rather than resist it, whether wisdom would prevail over pride. The communication system chimed, indicating the High Council was responding. Vex'Tal straightened his posture and prepared to deliver news that would send shockwaves throughout the Confederation's 17,000-member worlds. "This is Commander Vex'Tal of the Third Fleet," he began formally. "I must report a first contact situation of unprecedented significance. Humanity has arrived, Councillors, and nothing will ever be the same again." On the view screen, the Defiance's running lights pulsed as if signalling its agreement. A new era in galactic history had begun, with humanity announcing its presence not with a whisper, but with a declaration that could not be ignored. "We are here. We are armed, and we will be recognized."